Hello, Ken Spriggs here with part 8 of my Moebius 2001 EVA Pod build. Quite a bit of time before my last video, between now and my last video, and I wanted to go over that a little bit. A couple of things, certainly with the holidays, a lot of things were going on, a lot of things I was dealing with. Also, a little bit of health issues, nothing serious, but I've been having some trouble with my right shoulder, giving me some pain. It has been going on and off since last year, and so I got that looked into, and it turns out I have a torn rotator cuff. So no idea how that happened. I'm going to be 64 this year, so it doesn't take much apparently. You just wear things out and then they just get hurt over time. So I'm actually having surgery on it this Friday. Which I don't know when you're watching this video, but today's Wednesday, so in 2 days, to get that fixed. Not a serious surgery, but they're just going to repair it for me, get me back on my feet. So hopefully that will resolve the problem. But that's affected a lot of my model building, because any type of repetitious thing with sanding and that kind of thing just really aggravated the shoulder. Even working on just normal things with it, since it's my right arm, would cause it to hurt and ache. So hoping to get that back into a good position again. I will be out of commission for at least 2 weeks, probably closer to 4 to 6 weeks total, before I'm back up to full speed with that again. So I did want to try to get this to a good point to bring a video up for it. And I'll be doing one more video here as well about some other things that I'm working on for Wonderfest. So this particular video, I'm working on the ceiling and the back door, and getting the lights in the ceiling. All right, let's take a look. All right, so I'm working on the inserts that go inside of the ceiling. So you have this round part here, 2 round parts here, and then these are just clear parts that go in here. So the clear parts, I believe they're just going to be painted with Tamiya red, clear red, so that you don't have any real detail. But these round parts, they have a bunch of little detail, and there are masks for these in the Aztec Dummy set. Very helpful. So, but believe it or not, because you have to do both sides, you have to do the front and the back, according to Lou. Those 2 black ones I've reused. Because in order to paint this clear part enough to keep it light blocked, you have to paint both sides. Because it's clear, I can then, put the top on over the buttons and then see where they are on the back, so I can line up the back. So we have a clear piece. But each set, these are for 2 different pods, of course. Each set is 74 separate masks. So 148 altogether with these. Again, I mean, this kit and this spaceship, just the amount of lights and buttons are just absolutely over the top ridiculous for a one-man pod. It would literally take 4 men, if they were going to use all these different buttons and these lights meant anything in the roof, to run this damn thing, if they were using those actual controls. I'm making light of it, of course. Making light, a little joke there. So even on the ceiling, which it looks like these are simple, it's still a lot of work, a lot of effort to get these to where they need to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put some black, some my Krylon flat black on to both sides of these. I'll tape them down and do the one side first, probably the back, and then I'll flip them over and do the front once it dries. These don't have to be masked at all. They're simply going to fit inside, and they fit right into the spot. So there is no edge around it or anything else other than what's on the plastic kit part here. So, all right. All right, so I got the inserts painted and then I removed the masks, and you can see that it did its job. Light blocked them. They do have decals for these. I'm gonna have to see if I want to use them or not. Watching the video again from Lou Del Meso, he had a heck of a time getting them to settle down over these thick buttons. We'll see. I thought about maybe painting them because they're supposed to be different colors, I believe. We'll have to see from the instructions. I also taped these down, and I got a coat of Tamiya Clear Red on the outside. So this is the outside of them. I might put one more coat on it. Just to kind of give them some red that's coming through. I might even put just some regular flat red over top of them, just to give it some diffusion, to not see a hot spot. And then I went back. I should have done this first, but I have to light block the back. So I went back and I taped off the openings and I painted the flat black on the back. It did bleed through a little bit, and I had to go back and do a little bit of cleanup on them, which was kind of a pain because this is acrylic or enamel paint, so I had to use some enamel thinner, which I hate using. It really smells bad. And cleaned it up, and then I went back over with some of the red to clear up the extra color. And it was okay if a little bit of the black remained, just like I did with the rest of it. I'm okay with a little bit of shading in there. And then there's black down inside of those that will go along with the black pieces right here. I'm still trying to work out some ideas on how to do the lighting. These I'm just going to use some LED strips. A lot of the areas, like right here in the middle, has a lot of space for an LED strip, but some of these over here are a little more cramped, so I have to be careful how I position them. They're not going to have a lot of room for light boxes. I think these ones are okay, and this is okay for a light box as far as being able to have enough room in there. I'm not going to put a ton of effort to make them look, perfect, because this whole thing is lit up like a Christmas tree, and these were just yet again more lights within the whole multitude of lights within the ship. So they don't have to be perfect. They just have to have some light to them, give it a little bit of character. The ceiling itself doesn't have the main lighting components, so I'm going to do what I can do to light them, but nothing super major. But these are pretty much ready to go. I want to start playing with some lights before I start gluing any of this in and figure out what I want to do as far as the colors on these ones here. So, okay. All right, so I'm painting on the details, or I painted on the details onto the roofs, the ceilings, and the inside of the back doors. Mainly what I did was I glued these little parts in here, painted them black. Before I had painted the black and then the red, I masked off these white areas, so they're just the white plastic that the kit comes in. I'm not going to light them, but I wanted to have a nice background because you're going to have these would have some white in them and things like that, and that would kind of disappear on the dark red. These little things right here, they just go on these little circles. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to be a problem. If I put one down and it doesn't show up the little white line, I might have to go back and paint these white for that to show up. But otherwise, I think it should be fine. On the ceilings, I painted that bar there black. I painted the frameworks around those lights black because it looks like in the instructions, it looks like there's black around the clear part, but I don't know how you would do that since it's pushed in from the outside. They're clearly supposed to go on the outside. So I don't know how you would do that, but I figured I would just do that part as a black, just to give it that bit of an accent. And then there are decals for the little ones that go in the circles, but all they are is some fine outlines. I'm not going to bother with them. But these ones here I am going to use because they have actual words on them. But I cut out just the part that has the words, and I'm going to put those on either end. And I can do a flat coat over top of it. You're not really going to see much of these anyway up in the ceiling. I'm not too overly worried about them. But, okay. So now that I painted the other details that I needed to do, I'm going to go ahead and get the decals on these. And then once I finish up the light boxes, I can put those into the ceiling. And then those will be completed. All right, so I applied the decals onto the ceiling and the back door. So this one had the least amount. It just has this little teeny words right underneath that opening there for the red light. And on this side. And they're a little, you can see the glossiness. I still need to put a little bit of flat coat over that to dull that down. And then the little centerpiece in the top. This one also needs a flat coat. Same thing. And once that flat coat goes on, it's take that gloss away and it'll make that black blend in with the rest of the black paint. So, okay. And then the back doors, the inner door. These decals were actually much thicker, and they were, I guess they call it white backed, where that would have shown through whether I had the white plastic or not. Like you can see those little minus signs on those. They came through just fine. And those weren't painted white. So these are very thick, by the way. Pretty hardy decals, which is good, especially when they're flat. If they were round or over rounded surfaces, these ones were. These were over a little bit of surfaces, but I put some Walther decal setting solution over top of it, so they set down fine. These are glossy as well, as you can see, so I do need to put a flat coat over this to dull that down, but it looks pretty good. I like that combination. That really makes the back door come alive. So, okay. All right. So these are done for now. I'm going to go ahead and finish working on getting the lights put in for these controls and these other lights in the ceiling. All right. All right. So I mocked up the interior with the ceiling in the outer shell. I've done this before on a previous video, but now that I'm working on the lights for the ceiling, I wanted to go back and just really double check and make sure that I have enough room in order to put in some small light boxes that are going to fit inside. So some areas you have really no room at all, and that would be, you can just see it right here, this little hole. This is the two rounded ones in the front. And you can see that there really is not much space at all between the front. It's kind of hard to see. Oh, right here. I'm sorry. Right there. You can kind of see through to the controls. So they have to be very, very flush in order to fit inside of there. Now, the top, I have plenty of room because that's set down inside, and that's not going to be a problem. The red sections, and there's 3 of them that have lights. Here's one of them, right here. You actually have a pretty good amount of space. You can see right there. So I'm actually putting out light box over top of this. But it's really not a lot. At most, it's a ½ an inch. And then you really can't, let's see if I can get in there. It's really hard to see it. But yeah, there's a back one in there. It's really hard to see where it is. But again, you have about the same amount of space. See if I can show underneath. All right, so you can see that round looks like a portal. That's the part that I said doesn't have very much space. To the right of it, you have that rectangular part. That's got some more space. And on the other side as well. And then on the back, there's that curved one up above here. All right, so I'm still going to try to make them as close as I can to the ceiling. I don't want to run into the problem where I get them completed and wired and put in, and then when I go to put the interior into this, that they don't fit. And then I've got to go back and redo them again. That would be a nuisance for sure. So that's why I went through the trouble of putting this together. And it all fits in a certain way. You've got the bottom plate, you've got the floor part going into that. Then of course the side panels into those, and the ceiling on top, and you have a front and a back half of the ship, the outer hull. So, okay. Also giving you kind of an idea. You're going to see a lot through the portal. It's a pretty big portal. So, and also the back door. All right. All right, so as the previous still showed, I started working on the lighting for the little rounded pieces and for the top section. So it was hard to see when I had this mocked up inside of the outer shell, but here are those parts I'm talking about. So there's very little room between this extended piece and the outer shell on both sides. These ones have more room. Here's that curved part I was talking about. And this has a lot of room. This is all deep set because the dome goes over top. There's plenty of room for this. This one's the easiest one of all. So what I ended up doing, these ones I had to sacrifice getting as much light through them as I wanted to be. So what I ended up doing was I took a Mega SMD, cool white, and I 5-minute epoxied it to the back of it, and then I took some Tamiya blue and red, and in the instructions, I think some of these are supposed to be white, but I think they would look a little too garish, so I didn't want to do that. And these you're really not going to see all that well, especially you're not going to see them from the front. You'll see them from the back door. But I just put down some blue and some red. And this one has a little more buttons than the other one does. Or they're really buttons. I don't know what they're supposed to be. They're still a little bit glossy, but I'm going to put a flat coat over them when I'm done. But because it's so close, all I can do is get some light in some of the buttons, or the whatever they're supposed to be. But again, these ones I'm not quite as worried about. This one, I was able to get a really nice amount of light through it. And what I did was I built this light box with the LED strip on the outer side of it. And it just goes right down to the top of it. And it fits flush with the top of this. So this has plenty of room. It's not a problem at all. I still have to do some light boxes on these. I'm thinking of making something where maybe the light strip is kind of angled. And then maybe even do some diffusion. But we'll see. I really don't need these to light up the interior, and I don't want them to be too bright and for the red light to overpower all the different colored controls on the inside. The controls on the inside are really what light up the inside of this ship. So that's where the light's going to come from. And when you watch the film, obviously, that's what you see. You see all those buttons reflecting off of his clear visor on his spacesuit. So these are going to be red, and that's fine, but I don't really need them to be like really super bright red. And again, if I have those SMDs too close, that's what's going to probably end up happening. But I'll work on that and see what I can do. But let me show you what these look like. I'll get those hooked up onto there. So what I ended up doing on this one here, so I went ahead and I put on some clear Tamiya red and some clear Tamiya blue to just light these up. It comes with a decal, but from what I've seen watching Lou Del Meso's, it's a bear to get it over top of these raised buttons. What I did do was I cut the ends off of the decal because it has text on it, and just put those on. I still have to put a coat of flat black over there, or not flat black, flat coat, dull coat over it, but it nicely lights up the red and the blue rather than trying to use the decal to do it. So let me put this inside of here and I'll show you what this one's going to look like. So I'm just kind of marking this up. So you see there are the lights up there, those little rounded sections. They look a little brighter on the camera. Like the black part there that looks like it's blue, the circular part, that's actually still black. It just looks more obvious. This one doesn't look as bright, but it is just as bright for the top ceiling. Okay. See a little bit better that direction. Okay. And if those are a little too bright, I may dull them down with some Tamiya smoke. But as I said, these are going to get lost in with the rest of the lights of the controls. You're only going to see these from the back of the back door. These aren't going to be visible. This might be a little visible from the front and certainly from the back as well. But looking pretty cool. All right. All right, so I tried several times to try to do some light boxes on the outside of these to go over these plastic parts that came with the kit, which I don't know why they have this big giant lip. It, like I said before, it looks like this would go on the inside, but it doesn't fit. It is not designed to go on the inside. It's designed to go on the outside and sticking in. So why on earth is all this extra plastic there? It's really thick. And it's really difficult, same with these, to try to get a light box over it. And I tried a couple of things, some shapes like this. I had this shape here, which kind of went over it, and it wasn't working right. The key to it all was that you have to have the LED strip at least, I would say, like 3/8 of an inch away from the source, maybe a little closer, without getting some sourciness to it. And then these, I also had painted them with clear red Tamiya, several coats, still could not get it thick enough that they were not getting a little bit of unevenness, as you can see there. So I decided to abandon these altogether. They're just not going to work. Instead, what I used was some thin red styrene that I have, and also some thin white styrene. I don't know the exact thickness, maybe like 0.020 or something like that. It's pretty thin. It's not the paper-like material. I did play around with that, but that's a little too flexible. And what I did basically was I cut out the shapes and I glued them directly onto the kit so that they were flush. And then, well, let me go back up a second. So I used this to diffuse the light, because even at that close of a range, you were still seeing the little 3 LEDs on the LED strip in order to light that up. So I have this over top of it, which helped to diffuse it, but you can still see the red coming through. And then that gave me a nice flush part on it. And then what I did was I went ahead and made some light boxes that fit over top of those, but gave me enough of a distance. Let me go ahead and show this to you here. And sorry, I was trying to hash this out in my head and I didn't really stop to film each part of it. But you can see these ones here are fine. They're thick enough. They're thick, but they do fit in that space that you have. And then if I can show you down inside. So inside you can see that just the white diffusion, the red's underneath it. I had to put a bit of a curve in that so that would fit over top of that. The same with this one. I will fill in that top part when I'm done. The back one's a little more complicated because it's on a curve. And plus I didn't want to block that little piece right there with the little notch in it. A part of the top ceiling fits into that. So I'm still going to have to fuss with this and make sure that it fits. And then also, like I said, get that covered up and sealed in. And you can even see some of the red styrene right there on the edge. All right, so let me go ahead and plug in. I just have these wired together. Let me go ahead and attach those to the 9-volt battery and show you what those are going to look like. All right, so here are the 3 light boxes. The 2 in the front should be fine. The one in the back, I still have to kind of test it and make sure it's going to fit inside with the outer shell. But the key is to keep them far enough away from the actual screens that they're showing through, so they have a more diffused look. Just a very slight sourciness to them, but other than that, they're pretty much nice and even, as you can see. And those are glossy, by the way, as you can tell, but you're not really going to see that, so, okay. All right, so obviously these wires will have to be trimmed down and combined together to bring them into the power source once I'm done. But right now I just have them wired into this little clip-on for the 9-volt battery. Looks like a mad scientist helmet or one of those brain machines or something. But I wanted to kind of rig it up, and some of these are taped on just to kind of give you an idea of what it's all gonna look like with all of the interior lights lit up on the inside. Let me just be careful not to mess that up. All right, there we go. Very cool. All right. So, and again, none of these are lighting up the actual interior of the pod. That's not the point of them. This pod has so many lights in it that I like to keep saying it's lit up like a Christmas tree. But they are there and visible, so if you were to look inside, you're going to see them. If you're looking in the front, you're going to make out the top lights, the red lights. If you're looking in the back, you're going to make out these little ones in the front. But they're just adding to the overall look of the pod. And most of the light is going to come from the controls. All right, let's see if I can carefully get around the back of this. I don't want to pull something loose. Let's see. Kind of give you the idea of looking in. Sorry. Go this way. Again, I don't want to grab onto something that's going to pull it loose. Okay, there we go. So if you're looking in through the back, this is kind of the look that you're going to see. All right, so very cool. So this is done for now. I'm going to set this aside and I'll get all those wires put together correctly when I reach the point where I attach it onto the bottom controls of the ship. All right. All right, so a lot of progress on that. The ceiling is pretty much done at this point, except trimming down some wires and getting them combined and that sort of thing. I've gotten most of the interior done. The next thing I'll be working on here when I get back to working again is working on the other interior parts, the back door, not the back door, the back side panels, which again also have lights in them. Lots of lights in this pod, in order to get the interior completed and ready to get all attached together and sealed up. And then we can start working on the exterior and the headlights and the claws and things like that. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you to all our new subscribers, and look for that other video that I mentioned here probably by tomorrow, and then go over some other builds that I'm working on. All right. Thanks a lot.